Good afternoon and welcome to IBA News this Thursday, the 26th of May. I'm Elon Aslan-Levy, joining you live from Jerusalem. The right-wing composition of Israel's expanded coalition raises legitimate questions about the direction in which the country is heading and the policies it may adopt. This, according to the US State Department deputy spokesman, just hours after Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu welcomed the Israel Beitenu party into his government, with its chairman, Avigdor Lieberman, as Israel's incoming defense minister.
We have seen reports and agreements been reached to expand the coalition. We've also seen reports from Israel describing it as the most right-wing coalition in Israel's history. And we also know that many of its ministers have said they oppose a two-state solution. This raises legitimate questions about the direction it may be headed in, and what kind of policies it may adopt. But ultimately, we're going to judge this government based on its actions. We're going to work with this government, as we have with every Israeli government that preceded it, with the goal of strengthening our cooperation. And we remain steadfast in our commitment to the security of Israel, and then our commitment to working toward the two-state solution. Thanks, guys.
Education Minister Naftali Bennett is threatening that his Jewish Home Party will vote against Avigdor Lieberman's appointment as defense minister when it comes to a vote in the Knesset on Monday. IBA's political correspondent Kalev Ben-David looks at the politics behind this kerfuffle and other possible disputes that could arise in the new coalition.
Education Minister Naftali Bennett is defending his threat to oppose Avigdor Lieberman's appointment as defense minister unless Prime Minister Netanyahu appoints a military secretary to brief the security cabinet. The Jewish Home Party leader wrote on his Facebook page, "We are not asking for jobs. We are not asking for money. We are fighting for Israel's security." Bennett emphasized that one of the lessons learned from Operation Protective Edge in 2014 was that ministers were not kept properly informed about the potential threat of Hamas terror tunnels from the Gaza Strip. He insisted the appointment of a defense minister relatively inexperienced in top security matters to replace IDF Chief of Staff Moshe Ya'alon makes it more urgent than ever that the cabinet's expertise in military affairs be upgraded. Fueling the dispute is Bennett's desire to have a bigger say in security affairs, an issue of major concern for the Jewish Home's constituency in the Jewish communities of Judea and Samaria. Bennett's own military ambitions, made clear from his very first days in the cabinet, are liable to be one source of political trouble with new Defense Minister Lieberman in Prime Minister Netanyahu's widened coalition. Another potential conflict area is between Lieberman and Finance Minister Moshe Kahlon, who in the dispute over boosting pensions made clear he will not provide blank checks to the defense minister. Clashes between the finance and defense ministries over military budgets are commonplace, and having two ministers from different parties who both see themselves as potential prime ministerial candidates will only make it more so. Netanyahu will also have to take care that relations remain calm between Lieberman's Yisrael Beitenu faction and the government's two ultra-Orthodox religious parties, Shas and United Torah Judaism. Lieberman agreed, as part of the price for gaining the defense ministry, to suspend his party's advocacy for breaking the Orthodox monopoly on conversion and marriage, issues of great concern for his Russian immigrant constituency. But with some of these issues bound to come up in the Supreme Court over the coming months, the old tensions between Lieberman and the religious parties could resurface, providing the Prime Minister with one more political headache. This is Kalev Ben-David for IBA News.
Amotz Asael is back in the studio for a glance behind the headlines. Amotz, welcome.
Hi, Elon.
Poll after poll is showing that the Israeli public opposes the appointment of Avigdor Lieberman as defense minister. What sort of seeds of opposition can we sense to the current government within the Israeli public?
Well, there are two aspects to the situation. One is personal, the other is political. The personal aspect is that Moshe Ya'alon is now perceived universally as a victim, as a sacrifice, as a sacrificial lamb. And this is a position and a situation that Netanyahu might later learn was wrong for him to maneuver himself into in the best hint of that was Moshe Aarons's attack on Netanyahu's move. Moshe Aarons, for those who don't know, was 3 times defense minister. He was Bibi Netanyahu's patron. He launched his political career, and at 90, he's the elder statesman of Likud, and he attacked this handling of Ya'alon as something that Likud will soon learn that the mainstream public is unhappy with. That is on the personal side. On the political side, Netanyahu finds himself for the first time in his protracted prime ministerial career shorn of a centrist element in his government. He's recently had Yair Lapid, before that Ehud Barak, and back in the 90s he had Avigdor Kalani. Now he has none of those. The closest thing he has to a centrist in his government is Kachlon, who's actually a Likudnik.
Well, let's look at policy. The Israel Beitenu party conditioned its entry into government on additional pensions budgets. What sort of economic consequences can we expect, if any, from the new government?
Well, actually, this fiscal aspect, I think, will not materialize because Avigdor Lieberman is already inside the government. He's lost his bargaining leverage. The Treasury will not make this move, certainly not in an extravagant way. It is unaffordable and also unfair as far as Moshe Kachlon, the finance minister, is concerned. He's deemed it Lieberman's demands. He's deemed them as sectorial or sectarian, and he's therefore opposed to them, and I don't think that's going to happen. The happy aspect of this situation economically is that Israel's gas findings will now be mined finally with no interruption, because this coalition deal has finally removed the last obstacle. The government used this circumstance in order to sheepishly retreat from its previous hope to insert into the deal a clause that would have bound future governments from changing the regulations that make this mining possible. Now that this has been removed, the mining will go forth uninterrupted, and that will be very beneficial for the economy.
And well, meanwhile, while we've been talking about politics, arguably the number one story in Israel this week has actually been the victory of Hapoel Beersheva in the national championship. Is this just a sports story?
Well, in terms of sports, it's a nice story in the sense that this is a team that wins the championship for the first time in 40 years. But the story goes beyond sports. First of all, there is a feminist story here, improbably, in that the team is owned by a woman, by Alona Barkat, incidentally the sister-in-law of Jerusalem's mayor, and she, through her husband's wealth, who is Mayor Barkat's partner, bought the team about a decade ago and has now reached this kind of success. This is interesting as far as the status of women in Israel is concerned and their growing role in Israeli sports. But beyond that, there is also a geographic story. Beersheva has always been seen by the central parts of the country as peripheral. Now this brings them closer to the center. And there's also a happy racial story. In Hapoel Beersheva, there are Jewish, Muslim, Christian, black and white players all harmonizing, and the fans, which in this case have been there for decades and gone with the team through thick and thin, and in the past were infamous for being, at least in certain situations, very wild, under Alona Barkat's ownership have really become a very, very well-behaved audience, and added up, this is an antithesis to the bad stories we hear about football hooliganism in Israel, centering around Beitar Yerushalayim.
A sign of better times ahead, one hopes. Thank you, Amos.
Yes, Alon.
At this hour, a forest fire is raging in the Jerusalem neighborhood of Ramot, where firefighters are battling to quell the flames. Police are evacuating houses, fearing the flames will spread, fanned by strong winds. A short time ago, firefighters managed to quell a brush fire in Mevaseret Zion outside of Jerusalem, allowing people to return to their homes. Officials believe the fires were caused from Lag BaOmer bonfires that got out of control. Other fires were reported in Ashdod, Ashkelon and Kiryat Gat. Unsurprisingly, high levels of air pollution were recorded across the country today as a result of the annual Lag BaOmer bonfires. According to Magen David Adom, since last night, paramedics have treated dozens of injuries, ranging from smoke inhalation to excessive alcohol consumption. 17 people were transferred to hospitals across the country. Meanwhile, tens of thousands of people gathered on Mount Meron in northern Israel, the site of the tomb of Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai, to observe the anniversary of the death of the 2nd century Torah sage. Materials used to manufacture rockets were seized at the Tarkumia crossing near Hebron this morning. A joint operation launched by the Defense Ministry's Border Crossings Authority and the Shin Bet Security Agency found the materials hidden in textiles and jewelry destined for Gaza. Meanwhile, the Air Force targeted 2 Hamas locations in Gaza overnight in response to rocket fire towards southern Israel late last night. One of the rockets exploded in an open area in the Sha'ar HaNegev region. Palestinian reports from Gaza said a second rocket exploded inside the Gaza Strip. No injuries or damage were reported. The Omar Hadid Brigade, an affiliate of the Islamic State in Gaza, claimed responsibility for the rocket attacks. The army said it holds Hamas responsible for maintaining the calm. Meanwhile, in Jerusalem last night, 2 border police women were treated for smoke inhalation after firebombs thrown at a base near the Hebrew University's Mount Scopus campus sparked another brush fire. The United Nations envoy for the Middle East peace process warns the failure to address the situation in Gaza could cause further deterioration and threaten stability in the region. Speaking via video link to the UN Security Council yesterday, Nikolai Mladenov said if the prospects for peace remain out of reach, the current impasse will sap any remaining optimism to find a solution. He emphasized that political will and bold leadership are required to make genuine progress and peace a reality. Palestinian President Mahmoud Abbas will travel to Cairo tomorrow, where he will meet with Arab League Secretary General Nabil Arabi at the League's headquarters. The two are expected to discuss Egyptian President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi's recent offer to mediate talks between Israel and the Palestinians. According to unconfirmed media reports, an Israeli delegation held secret talks in Cairo earlier this week, among other things to arrange a trilateral meeting between the Egyptian President, the Israeli Prime Minister and Abbas, ahead of the French-sponsored International Peace Summit to take place in Paris on the 3rd of June. Hezbollah leader Hassan Nasrallah has also found time to comment on Israeli politics. In a televised address to followers from his bunker, Nasrallah criticized the decision to appoint Avigdor Lieberman as Israel's defense minister. Calling Lieberman crazy and coarse, Nasrallah went on to remind his supporters that Israel remains Hezbollah's greatest enemy in the region, stressing that the only way to stop the Jewish state's aggression is through resistance. Iran is renewing its financial support to the Islamic Jihad in Gaza to the tune of $70 million. This after 2 years of strained relations, reports the London-based pan-Arab newspaper Asharq al-Awsat. Islamic Jihad leader Ramadan Salah was hosted in Tehran last month and met the commander of the Iranian Revolutionary Guards, who reportedly voiced support for a Palestinian intifada. The Knesset celebrated its first ever Arabic Language Day on Tuesday, the initiative of Joint List MK Dr. Youssef Jabarin. Dov Lieber is the Times of Israel's Arab Affairs correspondent and spent the historic day at the Knesset. He joins me now in the studio. Welcome, Dov.
Well, thank you for having me.
What was the idea behind the Arabic Language Day?
Well, I think we can split it into 2 different reasons. One of them would be legal/social justice for Arabic as the technical official language of the State of Israel, which would require it to be used in the same capacity as Hebrew on street signs and, more importantly, on government websites for transportation, inside buses or whatever it is. And currently, the status of Arabic is not where it should be.
It's official in law, but not in practice, really.
Well, okay, so technically it is official, but in practice it's not. But this technicality, it's kind of something that was brought over from the British Mandate. Whether the creators of the State of Israel really wanted Arabic to be the same as Hebrew in the state, well, it doesn't seem so.
Well, we seem to be making some sort of progress towards greater recognition of Arabic in the state's fabric. Can we interpret this event as part of a more fundamental shift in the Jewish Israeli public's attitude towards Arabic?
It doesn't seem that way. During the discussions, there was no talk of a shift in Israeli society toward a more understanding shift towards Arabic. The opposite. There was a report given during one of the discussions that talked about the decline in the Arabic language among Jewish Israelis. It found that, for example, Mizrahim, the Jews who came from Arab countries, the 3rd generation Mizrahis, the ones who first moved here, about 25% knew Arabic fluently. The next generation, about 14%. The generation now, 1% essentially.
But all the same, we've just reported that the Education Ministry plans to make Arabic study compulsory in schools, and that's quite a shift from attempts in the Zev Elkin's nation-state bill to remove Arabic as an official language.
Well, okay, two things here. A, the attempt to establish Arabic as compulsory in earlier grades has been attempted before, but it wasn't put into practice. It's still not put into practice. Despite the reports in the media, it's still really just an idea. During the discussions yesterday, 2 days ago in the Knesset, a couple ideas were brought up. One of them was compulsory Arabic, spoken Arabic from the 5th grade. Another one was even from the 1st grade, in a bill that supposedly, Yosef Jaboudin told me, is supported by the government itself. But whether that's actually put into practice remains to be seen.
Okay, well, let's have a look perhaps at how things look in the eyes of the Arab public. Does one sense that we often hear many Arabs saying they cannot identify with Israel as a Jewish state? Might perhaps the greater integration of Arabic into the country's fabric cause a shift in their attitude towards the state?
Definitely, and that's the second part, the second reason I want to talk about, the reason that this day was put forward in general. Both the Jewish members of the Knesset and the Arab members of the Knesset really believe that if Arabic becomes a part of the daily Jewish fabric as well, it will help build bridges between the two societies, not just in the state of Israel, but also with the whole region as well. And it will do a lot to kind of simmer tensions between each other. Language, as is generally known, is a way to bring people together. Why not?
Wonderful. Shukran, Dov.
Afwan, habibi.
A manhunt is underway for the former boyfriend of 29-year-old Anastasia Rusanov and for 34-year-old Eliezer Kandinov, who were both shot dead in a Rishon LeZion apartment yesterday. Police believe the missing boyfriend was involved in the suspected double murder. Rusanov was found with multiple gunshot wounds, and Kandinov suffered a gunshot wound to the head. Rusanov's mother found the couple and alerted police. Rusanov had complained to police about her former boyfriend, who she said had threatened to harm her after their breakup months ago. Earlier this week, she was sent to a shelter for battered women, but opted to return to the apartment because she missed her children. The Israeli Kofix company says it has clinched a deal to expand its chain to Russia, where it plans to open 1,000 branches. 300 of the stores will be set up in the capital, Moscow, and 700 around the rest of the country. The coffee giant opened dozens of branches in Israel, offering coffee, sandwiches and cakes at a price of only 5 shekels apiece. It has also opened a number of supermarkets where it sells goods at cheap prices. Over to finance, where shares are down on the Tel Aviv Stock Exchange, but the shekel is up against major currencies. Here are the figures. And in weather, the weekend should be partly cloudy with a significant drop in temperatures, yet further below the seasonal average, and a possibility of light rain in the north. Here are the highs and lows. That's all for this week, and thanks for watching. We leave you with images of the annual Jerusalem International Festival of Light, which kicked off last night with the old city walls illuminated and street performances in the capital streets. The festival continues until the 2nd of June. I'm Elon Aslan Levy, wishing you Shabbat Shalom, live from Jerusalem.